All right, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm Gary Jenkins. I'm the Chief of Police for the City of Pullman Police Department. And let me make some introductions of some of my staff today. This is Commander Chris Tennant, Detective Sergeant Dan Hargraves, Detective Scott Kirk, Detective Brock Germer, and Detective Mike Crow. Today at approximately 12:30 p.m., Pullman police detectives arrested Madeline A. Fouts, F-O-U-T-S, in connection with the David Warner assault that occurred on March 30th. Fouts is a 21-year-old female Washington State University student and a Pullman resident. Detectives contacted Fouts earlier today at her Pullman apartment as a result of an anonymous tip that we received over the weekend. She agreed to accompany the detectives to the police department for an interview, and she was subsequently arrested after that interview. She was arrested for rendering criminal assistance, which is a felony, and providing false statements to a public servant, which is a misdemeanor. We have solid leads on the remaining 3 suspects, and detectives are aggressively following those leads. We're still asking for any witnesses to the assault to contact the Pullman Police Department at 509-334-0802. I will field some questions. However, there are some details about this case that we cannot release because it is still under investigation. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Yes.
Based on the interviews with the arrested suspect, do you guys believe it might be racially motivated at this time?
So the question was whether, based on the interview with the suspect that we arrested, whether there's any indication that the assault was racially motivated. And I would say at this point in the investigation, we don't have any indication that there was any type of racial focus involved in this assault on the parts of the suspects. Yes?
Is Ms. Fouts cooperating with investigators?
At this point, she is cooperating with us. Yes.
Chief, is there any indication that this may have had something to do with she got a bad grade and she was mad at a prof or anything like that?
So the question is whether there's any connection between Madeline Fouts and the victim in regards to a connection on campus with being a professor or grades. And at this point, we don't have any information that would lead us to believe there's any type of connection like that.
Do you know her specific involvement in this case? I mean, was she with the other suspects? I mean, did she facilitate this fight? Do you know her specific involvement?
Well, as you can see from the charges, we have not arrested her for assault. So at this point in the investigation, it appears that she was with the other suspects, and she did render some assistance to the suspects that were involved in the assault.
Is Tanner May somebody that you're looking into as another suspect?
We're not going to release any names of any other potential suspects at this point.
No, but we can clarify that he's not been arrested.
Apparently the question was previously asked about whether a person by the name of Tanner May, who is associated with Madeline Fouts, has been arrested, and so far Madeline Fouts is the only person that's been arrested in this case.
How many of the other 3 suspects do you expect to face assault charges?
The question is how many of the other suspects do we expect to face assault charges? And we don't know at this point in the investigation. That's a part of the continuing investigation and will be the subject of interviews that we conduct with additional witnesses that come forward as well as the remaining suspects.
In addition to the anonymous tip that you received, have any other leads or witnesses come forward today? Or?
I believe that we've had between 2 and 4 leads daily for the past few days. Would that be an accurate assessment?
That's about right. We've had about 6 today.
Detective Germer indicates we had about 6 tips today.
Oh, wow.
And I put another one in your mailbox.
Do you think the reward has played any role in that? Have people implied that they were interested? Or?
Right now, I don't know any connection between the current tips we're receiving and the reward that was offered. The anonymous tip we received was received prior to the reward, so I think I can say with confidence that the reward wasn't a factor in that particular tip.
Was there any information prior to that tip last night
That tip is the tip that really broke this case. Yes.
Why was she charged with providing false statement to law enforcement?
The question is, why was she charged with providing a false statement to law enforcement? Upon initial contact, she was being less than cooperative with us and was providing false information to us, which we have since been able to discredit and obtained more accurate information from her.
Are you able to say anything else about what the motive for the attack might have been?
The question is if we're able to say anything about what the motive of the attack was. At this point, we're not. We have some different statements we've received from witnesses and the people involved, and I don't think we can really reach a conclusion at this point.
Will the extent of Professor Warner's injuries affect the charges of the three suspects or of Madeline Fouts?
For those suspects that are ultimately charged with assault, the seriousness of the injuries do impact the crime that they're specifically charged with. So a serious injury does elevate the level of crime that they would be charged with.
Have there been any talks with your department and the area, I guess the people that own the area or run the area, about any further actions that the police department might take or that the community might take to prevent things like this from happening again?
So the question is if we're taking any actions to try to prevent this type of thing from happening again. I would say that that's an ongoing effort of law enforcement and the community. For example, the cameras that were used to capture the video have been in the works since 2011. So we are doing some things to try to have some long-term impact in the area. And in fact, one of the reasons for the cameras in the area was to have that type of impact. And actually, this case brings to light successful use of those cameras to identify suspects involved in those types of crimes.
What you've been able to gather from her, maybe what she has said to you, I mean, do you believe that she and maybe the other people involved were intoxicated that night?
The question is, as a result of our interview with Ms. Fouts, whether it appears that alcohol is a factor or was involved that night. And as a result of our entire investigation, I would say that alcohol was definitely a factor, as it is with many assaults in that area. Any other questions?
Has Ms. Fouts been booked into the Whitman County Jail yet, and do you know when her first court appearance might be?
She is still at the Pullman Police Department, and we are continuing to interview her. So, no, she has not been taken to Whitman County yet.
Are you confident that maybe talking to her, not having her in custody, there's going to lead you to some of the other suspects?
We do have very solid leads on the remaining suspects, and I'm very confident that arrests of those suspects are imminent. I can't give you a timeline, but we have some very solid leads.
Have you contacted any of those suspects or their attorneys?
I'm not going to comment on any of the details about contacting potential suspects at this point.
What's the latest you've heard on Dr. Warner's?
I have only received information third hand, and the last I heard from someone this morning that had received information was that he's still in critical condition.
At this point, is that surveillance video still a useful tool? Is that still something you want the public to be reviewing?
So the question is whether the video that we've put out to the public is still useful and whether we want the public to still look at that. I would say that if someone could still identify either a participant or a witness, that we would like the identity of those persons, yes.
But you're relying more on these other tips now, would you say?
I would say we're fairly confident that we have enough information that will lead us to the suspects. However, we want to gather as much information and evidence as we can.
Is that some of the enhanced images that Spokane Police is working on?
So the question is, what is the status of the images that we asked of Spokane Police Department to do some image enhancement for us? And the result was that the enhanced images we received from Spokane PD were not
Sufficient.
they were not of sufficient quality. They did not improve the quality of the photos good enough to re-release those photos out.
Is it true that you found, or that there was individuals recording off of cameras or handheld devices?
We do have on the videos from Adams Mall what appears to be people recording the incident on their telephones or PDAs, and those people we would like to come forward also. Again, with all of the information and evidence we can collect, the better.
Again, I guess to be clear, have you seen those videos?
We have not had in,
We have one lead.
do we have, we haven't received any though, right?
Correct.
We have,
One lead.
we have a lead on one video from one person, but to date, we haven't received any videos from the public.
Prior to today, there was some indication that one of these young men was the primary attacker, primary assailant, whatever it is, and that the other two were to some extent lesser involved. Is that still what you're running with, that one of these individuals was really the one doing the attacking?
We don't really know the extent to which each suspect was involved, and again, we won't really know that until we talk with all of the remaining witnesses and the remaining suspects.
Do you think the remaining suspects are still here in the Pullman area?
I'm not going to comment about any more details about the outstanding suspects.
There were some concerns expressed this week at various meetings in the community about safety on College Hill, and I'm wondering with Mom's Weekend coming up, are there any extra patrols or plans for extra police presence this weekend on College Hill?
Well, we generally increase our staffing on heavily trafficked weekends, such as Mom's Weekend, and so we do already have a staffing plan in place to have additional staffing up on College Hill. And I wod note also that just our regular deployment of officers, we deploy more officers in the College Hill area than anywhere else in the city, just because of the amount of activity that occurs there.
Being that this was the first high-profile case for those cameras, were you disappointed with the quality of the pictures? Are you able to do that in the future?
Actually, I wasn't disappointed in the quality of the photos or of the videos. We have to keep in mind that it was at nighttime and it was a fairly long distance. There is a capability to zoom in if someone were to see this happening and could zoom in and get a higher quality, which would have happened if that occurred. But I'm very happy with the result of the cameras, because without the cameras, we probably wouldn't be standing here now, and this case would likely have gone unsolved for quite a long time.
Can you say to me how big a role it played, that surveillance video in general, getting it played, over and over again?
I think it's my opinion that without those videos, this case may likely have not been solved at all. All we would have had would have been some partial suspect descriptions from various witnesses who already have given some different descriptions, and that's very difficult to obtain an identification with just those suspect descriptions. Then it becomes a matter of people coming forward that might know about it, and that's a lot of times what we end up relying on. And in this particular case, as we can see, we're here 10 days later, and we've just made our first arrest for